Because I'm a homeschooled preacher's kid, I grew up around the kind of people who were reliably upset the day after the Super Bowl. Upset about the revealing outfits, upset about the dancing, upset about the vulgar lyrics, you name it. But as I've aged, I've watched an ever growing number of people join these ranks, many of whom are not Christians, are not parents, and who seem to have no compelling reason to be bent out of shape over a secular performance, specifically one that is tightly bound by FCC guidelines. Like, how raunchy can you even get here? Kendrick Lamar's halftime show at this year's Super Bowl featured no nudity, no revealing outfits, no cussing, and no notable symbols that could be seen as signs of Satanism, which you would be surprised is on a number of people's checklist for things you have to look out for at these things. Yet, despite maneuvering around these landmines, Kendrick's performance has still been caught in the crosshairs of cultural conservatives, and their commentary around it ranges from completely obtuse to unmistakably biased. Let's dig in. First, I'm Hannah Cox. Welcome to my channel where I bring you my politically homeless takes on politics and culture. If you enjoy the show, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to my channel. I release shows every weekday at 7 p.m., so hit that notification bell to get reminders too. Also, if you're listening on audio, you can head over to Spotify or to Apple Podcasts and rate and review the show. I don't know if it's just that I'm getting older or if it's that people are becoming more boomer Karen-y at a younger age, but it's very weird to look around and observe people my age performatively virtue signaling against halftime performances.
It is so funny to watch the Trump supporters melt down over Kendrick Lamar's performance at the Super Bowl halftime show. Like, these guys are losing it. Former Republican Representative Madison Cawthorn said halftime show should have just been Donald Trump dancing to YMCA, further proving that they are very much so in a cult. Lauren Boebert said, "Tell me I'm not the only one needing subtitles for this. I forgot that Lauren Boebert can only hear when someone is bowing down to Donald Trump. If it's anything else, well, she's not so great." Charlie Kirk said, "This music is not my style. This is the same guy who loves Kid Rock."
Like, okay, grannies. What's even more disjointed about some of these reactions, though, is that conservatives keep trying to claim they're the cool kids now, or that the culture is somehow moving in their direction. And it's all just really pathetic and desperate. Like, take this article that went viral over the past month. It's called The Cruel Kids Table, and it has a picture from a pro-Trump event. It was published in The New Yorker. And when this came out, conservatives were like, oh my gosh, we've made it. We are officially the cool kids. Like, the entire piece is mocking them. And yet you had people like Greg Price coming on social media and just completely, it went right over their heads. He wrote, "I love this specular media fail for so many reasons, chief among them being it illustrates how the left is so unbelievably defeated, not just politically, but to the point that being conservative is now associated with the cool, fun, attractive, well put together crowd." Like, that kind of delusion, that inability to read social cues has to be somewhere on the spectrum. I'm going to hold people's hands while I say this, but the blatant desire to be perceived as cool is distinctly uncool. And if the culture were truly moving in your direction, you wouldn't have to swim upstream so hard, and you wouldn't be constantly looking for signs that you have made it. Trump won because the economy sucked, plain and simple, and also because Biden tried to force vaccines in people's veins, and also because the Democrats tried to rig an election in plain sight. And yet, Trump still only won by a few percentage points. So a lot of these people just need to calm their tits. Your rush to come out and proclaim that the rest of the culture, the rest of the 50% of the country is dead and that you're now the cool kids is just hilarious. And especially when you come in and start making posts like the ones I'm about to read you. Jack Posobiec said, "DEI halftime show." Like, does this walnut recognize that a very large percentage of the NFL is Black? So I don't think having a Black performer would be considered a DEI hire. Also, let's not forget the fact that after the whole Justin Timberlake, Janet Jackson, like, brawl episode, we had, I think, 5, 6, 7 years of very old, very dated white guys perform. It was like a whole decade of Paul McCartney and Sting and other bands that people would like to forget. So if anything was like a DEI hire, it was that era. Matt Walsh said, "Bold decision to hire a halftime performer who doesn't actually perform." doesn't actually perform. Kendrick was rapping for like 10 minutes straight, which takes an incredible amount of talent to do, especially while you are actively moving around. It had tons of dancing, tons of choreography. The view from overhead was really interesting and intricate. There was also a lot of political commentary going on beneath the surface. Like, what do you mean doesn't actually perform? As you can see, this performance really broke Matt Walsh's brain. He went on an entire Twitter diatribe writing, bizarre decision by the NFL to have some guy come out and lethargically mumble a bunch of songs that 90% of the NFL audience has never heard. And then he said, this is easily the worst halftime show I've ever seen. Just because you don't personally enjoy the art doesn't mean it's bad, first and foremost. But secondarily, to allege that over half the NFL's audience and half the country who were tuning into this specific game have not heard of Kendrick makes you sound like you live in a very deep echo chamber, because he is one of the most successful artists of the past decade. He's won multiple Grammys. He has a Pulitzer Prize. And on top of all of that, his main number one song right now, They Not Like Us, is like the rap battle song to defeat all rap battle songs. Like, this is an iconic song. It's completely taken down the career of arguably the next biggest star, which is Drake. So I don't know how you live and breathe and operate in the world and are a commentator without being aware of those factors. Like, yes, more than half the people tuning in had heard of Kendrick Lamar. Ben Shapiro said, my halftime show review, actually, it's a beautiful voice and a beautiful accent. The only problem is I can't understand a word you're saying, but I just will say this, good luck and live in peace, which he's quoting Trump in a embarrassing media interview from earlier this month, where a reporter from another country tried to ask him questions in English, and because he couldn't understand her, he responded like that.
Expectation from you. Do you have any plan to change Afghanistan situation? Are you able to recognize Taliban? Because I'm an Afghan journalist, Afghan suffered woman. Any comment about Afghanistan? What's your future plan for Afghan people, especially Afghanistan?
I have a little hard time understanding you. Where are you from? Oh. Actually, it's a beautiful voice and a beautiful accent. The only problem is I can't understand a word you're saying. But I just say this, good luck, live in peace.
What strikes me is that the vast majority of these commentators are literally like 40-year-old white men. Do they truly not know that you can just turn on closed captioning if you can't understand the words? Like, it's weird that you can't. You should get your hearing checked, but you've got other tools at your disposal you could utilize to try to understand what you were watching versus going online and airing for everybody else that you're a boomer. Benny Johnson said, hey, NFL, Trump won. We no longer let talentless, mumbling, pagan, satanic cultists do halftime shows and pretend like people like it. I cannot with him. Anybody who starts talking about Satanism, like, you're immediately a grifter in my book. Be so serious. Please shut up. You are seriously playing to the absolute lowest common denominator with this crud. But secondarily, I guess I'm not surprised that Benny Johnson, who actually does platform sexual abusers like Andrew Tate, I covered that recently, that he had that predator on his show. I shouldn't be surprised that he's mad at a halftime performer who actually calls out pedophilia and does so in his number one song right now, which I'll circle back to more in a minute. Now, I want to be clear. It's not that there are no cool conservatives. There are. There are plenty of normal conservatives who like and enjoy art, who participate in the modern world, and who aren't just coming online and screeching for clicks. I thought Amala Ekpanobi's take on this performance was really great.
And I'm thinking, I'm going to find another conservative dogging on Kendrick Lamar. Not me. Where is she? Not me, brother. Okay. I can recognize talent. Even if I don't agree with the politics, a lot of the politics that was underlying in the show and some of the sentiments he was trying to share, I recognize artistry when an artist is present, and I can appreciate somebody who may be sharing a message that I disagree with, but is doing it fantastically.
The novelty of being able to appreciate art, even when you don't necessarily agree with it. I mean, it's an art that we're losing. Mark Twain once said it is the mark of an intelligent person to be able to entertain ideas they do not hold. And I just have to say that the vast majority of people who are critiquing Kendrick are making it very evident that they are not intelligent. They do not possess that ability. Art is supposed to make you feel something. It's often controversial because it's working to make a point. And I think that's one reason reason conservative art is so cringe. It's because so many of them lack the ability to engage with art, to understand other perspectives, and then to use these mediums to effectively communicate. As this person on Twitter said, conservatives will rant and rave about fighting the culture war while rejecting everything they don't understand or agree with in pop culture, like hip hop. It's so weird. Like him or not, Kendrick is a vastly skilled communicator and artist. He's a Pulitzer Prize winner. He's won multiple Grammys. He is known for having intelligent lyrics. And on top of all of these things, he has built a name for himself by being an advocate for young men, who has pulled himself out of the streets and gang life and found mainstream success as a poet. And he uses that platform to try to persuade young men from falling into the same pitfalls that he did. On Twitter, Rave Aurora said, conservatives don't really understand hip-hop culture. Even the artist who has been most vocal in defending free speech and opposing political correctness and woke identity politics, Kendrick Lamar, is hard to put in a box ideologically or theologically, but he's been an overwhelming force for good and uplifting broken, lost men across the U.S. who are living in an increasingly nihilistic, hypersexualized society bereft of the mystical. So if you're loudly proclaiming that Kendrick is a DEI pick, or that you can't understand the words, or that he isn't artistic, I think you're probably just racist, or you're the world's biggest bumpkin, and you should probably just keep these things to yourself.
I can't understand a word he's saying. This is the most boring halftime show I've ever seen in my life. They should have booked a real musician like Garth Brooks. Couldn't even get some cheerleaders up on stage. What the hell?
Most of the criticism Kendrick was getting from conservatives was not actually related to the political commentary that was present in his performance. I think it went right over their heads as much as the next group I want to talk about. And like many of them have loudly aired, they couldn't understand the words. They didn't know what he was saying. So I guess they weren't really able to critique anything other than the fact that there was a Black person performing at the Super Bowl who was not wearing a MAGA hat, because that would have made all the difference, and who was performing in a style they don't personally consume. That's the whole reason that they were mad. But perhaps what's even more amusing than the conservatives who had their panties in a wad over Kendrick's performance was those that thought this performance was for them. Matt Binder pointed this out on Twitter along with a collage I'm going to read you. He said, way funnier than the conservatives who hated Kendrick Lamar's Super Bowl halftime show are the conservatives who thought he was doing the ultimate patriotic ode to America. And then he included a few screenshots of conservatives doing just that. This one said, a few years ago, they were endorsing burning the USA flag, and now Samuel L. Jackson is Uncle Sam at the Super Bowl. Hollywood is desperately trying to get America to pay attention to them again. You're right, sweetie. That's exactly what was happening during that performance. You're doing amazing. Another person said, we are so back. Finally, NFL joins in celebrating US flag instead of disrespecting during halftime. Pardon me if he said something offensive, but the flag display by the performers was amazing. I didn't pay attention to lyrics. Cheese and rice. There is nobody that comes across lower IQ to me than a person who worships flags. You know, the type that's like, I love my flag, I love a flag. They got flags everywhere. It's so freaking weird. Like, I cannot relate. I do not pledge allegiance to my government. My government should be pledging allegiance to me, and I'm certainly not going to worship a flag. But like, man, this part of boomer culture is like hot and heavy, and they are not letting up anytime soon. It's why they were so mad about the kneeling in the NFL that occurred about a decade ago, which is just wild to me. Like, there's nothing you could ever do to peacefully protest that would work for these people. They're always going to find a way to critique it. They're always going to have something to say about the manner in which you are trying to bring up problems with the government, which is what's so like disconnected, is these same people will claim to be conservatives, claim to support limited government because they know it has all these issues. And then they pitch a hissy fit when somebody kneels respectfully and says, I can't pledge allegiance to the flag right now, or I can't sing the national anthem because these are huge problems. These are huge, awful atrocities our government is carrying out, and we need to do something about it. And they're like, how dare you insult my government? Another person said, finally, a non-woke satanic halftime show. I promise you, boomer conservatives know more about Satanism and its symbols than any actual Satanist could ever pretend to. He went on to say, Kendrick Lamar is showing off the American flag. I love this. And lastly, someone said, we went from kneeling during the national anthem to a halftime show showcasing USA flag colors. We are so back. Good Lord. I work in politics full time. I run 2 political companies, and I cannot comprehend having a brain that is this consumed by politics, where you cannot consume anything, anything without having to relate it back to your political party. You need to get hobbies, you need to get friends, you need to get some therapy, and you need a reality check because your government sucks, okay? So I don't care if you're team blue or team red. The only team you should be on is team take down the government because they are an enemy of the people. And it's just as true for the other team as it is for yours. But before we get into my analysis of Kendrick's performance, I'm curious what your thoughts were. Weigh in for me here, guys. Did you pick up on the symbolism going on? How did it land with you? What did you think of the performance? Please let me know in the comments. I do try to read each and every one. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my channel while you're there. I think the way you can especially tell that Kendrick is such an intelligent artist is that he was able to deliver his critique of the country in a palatable way. And I think that's what good messengers do, okay? They can't come in and beat people over the heads and tell them that they're wrong or tell them that they're on the wrong side of history or criticize their sacred cows. They often have to find ways to present themselves, as Dale Carnegie says, in a way where you can find alignment and agreement and get them to a yes on something that you have commonality on, and then start to move them with you over time. So everything about the way he structured this, I think, was very, very smart. Clearly, for at least half these people watching, this came across to them as a patriotic show, as somebody who loves America, as somebody who is on their team. I don't actually think Kendrick is on either team. I'm not like an avid fan. I'm kind of ambiguous. I like some of his music, but I'm way too busy to follow celebrities all that deeply. But from the research I did for the show, I think he's not somebody you can really put in a left-wing or right-wing box. I do think he has a lot to say. And I think he said many of those things in this performance. And a lot of them I would agree with. Again, I've never understood people on the right who get all upset over people criticizing our government. I think it's actually insane to be out in the streets with your full chest defending the US government. But despite my lack of background with Kendrick, I knew from the minute that he brought out Samuel L. Jackson as Uncle Sam that this was going to be very interesting commentary. For those of you who don't know, Samuel L. Jackson was a very well-known and visible political activist at Morehouse College here in Atlanta during his youth. He ended up being a pallbearer in Martin Luther King Jr.'s funeral. Like, he has a history of advocacy around civil rights, around nonviolent civil disobedience, which is also my theory of change that I share with Martin Luther King Jr. I have a whole video on that. I will link in the show notes if you want to dig into that further. But like, this is somebody who is a very intentional activist and who has a long background of participating in these kinds of events. So I thought that that was just absolutely really cool from the get-go. Now, obviously, there are a lot of layers to this, okay? Black men have often been called uncle when they deviate from the script that they're sort of given, obviously in reference to Uncle Tom. You also have the relation of the US government to Black America and having this traditionally white role embodied by a Black man, kind of flipping the script on that, which is very unique and interesting. Also, Uncle Sam has often been seen as a tool of propaganda to push military enrollment. So you have all of these layers going on, and Kendrick then employs this character being played by a Black man to come in and police him throughout his performance and hold him to respectability politics that will make him more palatable to the country at large. The entire thing was just so meta because obviously the same kinds of critiques that Samuel L. Jackson's character as Uncle Sam is giving Kendrick throughout his performance about respectability politics to make sure his message is more palatable to America are the exact same critiques that conservative America is now writing online, and the entire point just goes right over their head. It's brilliant. And honestly, that's just the tip of the iceberg in this performance.
And then also going to Welcome to the Great American Game is a double entendre because we're obviously watching the Super Bowl, but he's talking about the game that is America and being Black in America. And so to start his performance, Kendrick is standing on top of a 1987 Buick, a Grand National GNX, which is also his album name, GNX. And not only that, this is also clear representation of his upbringing in Compton, but also the car culture in Compton as well. He starts his performance off with a freestyle where he talks about no hugs and no handshakes because he's not playing nice, and that you wouldn't get the picture if he sat you for hours at the Louvre. I think that represents the political climate that we're in now, whereas there's no time or no room for niceties right now. Either you get it or you don't. At the end of his freestyle, Kendrick Lamar says, "The revolution is about to be televised. You picked the right time, but the wrong guy." which is a play off of Jill Scott Heron's The Revolution Will Not Be Televised song, which was a critique on the American media, saying that they only focused on propaganda, consumerism, and entertainment. But in order for real change, people had to step out of their homes for liberation, for protest, and for freedom. You had to be actively involved in order to fight for justice. So with Kendrick saying the revolution will be televised, you chose the right time but the wrong guy, is him saying that you chose the perfect person for this performance. The timing couldn't be more perfect. Kendrick then performed Squabble Up, and before he could even finish, Samuel L. Jackson comes in and says, no, 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 too loud, too reckless, too ghetto. Kendrick Lamar, do you really know how to play the game? Then tighten up. And this is clear conditioning within white supremacy and America, which is that Black people should be docile, Black people should be quiet, Black people should be grateful for scraps.
Aside from the political commentary, the thing I found most interesting about Kendrick's performance was his playing They Not Like Us. I'm not going into the entire rap battle here. There are plenty of other commentators who have done that. You can go listen to the New York Times. They did a whole episode on it not long ago that I thought was really interesting and informative. But the reason I was so obsessed with the fact that he chose to play this, while it seems like an obvious choice, it's his #1 hit, biggest song he's ever had, it's completely taken the country by storm, is that he is currently being sued over it. And so most legal advice would tell you to lay low, to not push back, right? And this is a way that people are silenced all the time. Even when they are totally within their rights to say something, people use lawsuits to silence them, and most people fold. It's scary to be sued. Even when you're a wealthy person, it's scary to be sued. So Drake is suing him because of the allegations Kendrick makes about him in this song, They Not Like Us, which is part of the rap battle between the two rappers. And it has become so iconic. It so thoroughly laid Drake out. Like, it has pretty much ended Drake's career. Okay. I cannot overemphasize how impactful this song has been. And not only did Kendrick choose to play it despite all of this, he also called Drake out by name in the performance. He mocked him for suing. Like, this guy is a free speech icon. Like, I'm gagged. And I don't know how conservatives did not at least love this part, because no one loves calling people pedophiles more than conservatives. So you would think this song, in which Kendrick uses that label and calls out Drake, would be their anthem. Make it make sense. Conservatives keep claiming that celebrity culture is over, that they don't care about celebrities anymore. But this entire display makes it so apparent that they care more than anyone. They need celebrities to validate them so badly. They're like kids with daddy abandonment syndrome. And when presented with a celebrity who they even just like perceive as not being politically aligned with them, they melt down. It's evident in these Kendrick takes. It's evident in the fact that they booed Taylor Swift at the Super Bowl when she was just shown on screen. And then Trump tweeted about that multiple times. It's very abnormal adult behavior. Meanwhile, this same group of people worship at the feet of any D-list celebrity who puts on a MAGA hat. Like, these people will literally tell you with a straight face that Kid Rock or Billy Ray Cyrus should have been performing instead of Kendrick, because they believe in a meritocracy, of course. It's major snowflake behavior, and frankly, it's embarrassing to watch grown adults expose themselves like this. Get a grip. All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you want to support my work, please make sure you subscribe to my channel and tune in every night at 7 p.m. for shows consistently. Tuning in, consuming, and sharing is the best way to help me grow, and it means the world to me. Also, little housekeeping, I am signing off through next Monday. My husband and I, who, yes, we already married, but we have not had our wedding ceremony yet, so we are heading to Santa Ynez Wine Valley in California over the next week to hopefully, finally, lock in details for our official wedding ceremony. I've been super slow at planning this, so wish me luck. I'll post some pics, and I'll see you next Tuesday.